Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Golden, and welcome to another Starbase Weekly live stream. Happy to be here with you guys. We have a great show for today. Tons of stuff to go through. I say that every week, but I think this is definitely a special flyover. It's pretty rare to be able to catch some of the bigger operations that happen while they're actually in progress. So we got some really cool stuff this week of getting some flyover shots as the lift of Ship 30 was happening with the Chopsticks. So that was really cool. Yeah, we have tons of ground photos to go through as well as aerials. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce our guests for today. And we will have Ryan Hansen Space with us. So Ryan Hansen Space, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I should just call you Ryan, but I can't say your name without adding the rest of it.
Yeah, well, of course, it gets a little confusing because we've got Ryan Weber now, we've got myself, and there's a few Ryans in the community, so it can get a little confusing. But yeah, it's good to be here. It's a lot of cool images, pouring over a few of them here and there, but looks like there's a lot of exciting stuff happening around Starbase.
Yeah, agreed. The other two Ryans would be Ryan from Starship Gazer and Cosmic Perspective. So definitely a few Ryans out there. Also joining us today, we will have Alex with us. So Alex, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. It's going to be a great show. And like Ryan, I've lost myself in quite a few of the images.
Awesome. And handling questions and donations for us will be Lawrence. How's it going, Lawrence?
Doing great. Great to be back. And everybody, just remember to hit exclamation question with your questions, and we'll try and make this a very enjoyable show today.
Awesome. And yeah, like I said, we do have both ground and aerial shots for today. So Mauricio actually got out there and got a bunch of ground images. So we went out there before the lift, so you can actually see the ship down here waiting by the Chopsticks. So he got down and got tons of ground images before the actual lift occurred, and then obviously got in the air and caught it in progress pretty much right as it was starting. So that's super difficult timing. I don't know if he actually waited at the airport for the lift to begin, but I think it was kind of just how it ended up working out since he got out there for ground shots first. But yeah, I think the last time we had an aerial shots of a lift was when they were lifting ship 20 onto booster 4 with the LR 11350. That was probably one of my
Frankencrane.
Frankencrane. Yeah, that was one of my favorite flyovers of all time. But I think this one kind of tops that in some ways. But so we got some really awesome shots that we're going to show when we get to that part of the episode. Yeah, I just want to mention, as y'all could tell, with doing ground shots and aerials in one day, it is quite a lot of work, and especially with the type of flyovers that Mauricio does now. So like when the clouds are clear, he's actually able to get a little bit more creative. And so he actually started this flyover off by doing a low pass. So that's how we got some of these low pass views, because sometimes you can see details in those low pass views that you're not able to see when you're looking at it from directly above. So, after getting these low pass views, he has to climb up to 10,500 feet in order to get directly over the site to get the aerials that most of us are used to. So a lot of gas burned up on those flyovers. So definitely want to give an extra shout out to everybody who donates during the streams, because it really allows him to get up there and extend these flyovers in order to get these kinds of angles. And as you all know, gas is not cheap. So every bit of support that we get from the audience definitely helps. And also huge shout out to all of the YouTube and Patreon members. If you guys are members of the channel or happen to get gifted a membership during today's stream, then you will have access to all of these images. So I believe, oh man, I don't have the actual image count in front of me, but I want to say there was like close to 300 ground shots this week. And then just a ton of aerials. Usually I have those numbers in front of me, but I don't have them currently. But it's a lot. So yeah, if you guys want to go through these on your own, sometimes I'm not able to cover everything, and there may be things that you want to see on your own. So being a member or getting gifted a membership allows you to go through those, and especially before the shows, because these come out the day before the show. So a lot of times people will actually read or glance through all of these images first, come up with questions, and then bring them with them to the live streams. So yeah, always helpful tools, and just awesome to have all of this stuff. If you're a member, you actually get images going all the way back to Mauricio's first flyover, I think back in 2019, I think. Yeah, that's how far back I think the Patreon goes. So yeah, with that, I won't drag on with that too much longer, but is really important for us to mention. So again, thanks to everybody for your support. And with that, I guess we'll go ahead and hop into today's show. Before we go to where we normally start at, I did want to do a little brief mention of this project going on at the Port of Brownsville Harbor. I always get confused with this Port Isabel or Port of Brownsville, but I think it's Port of Brownsville. So this LNG project that they have going on, I really like to just show updates for those who are interested in it. Yes, it's true that this does not really have much to do with SpaceX, but we sit here and talk about construction pretty much every day on this show. So I think showing one of the largest projects in South Texas is pretty cool to be able to just see the incremental progress that they make over time. But yeah, one thing in particular that I kind of wanted to point out here was something that a lot of y'all are familiar with. If you've been following Starship for a while, and they've actually started to construct these large storage tanks. And I believe these are supposed to be cryo storage, right?
Yes. They're for the LNG before it gets loaded into the tankers.
Yeah, so I think this actually kind of looks like it's a double-walled tank as well, too. So that's similar to the original tanks at the Orbital tank farm. They were double-walled tanks with insulation in between. I think that's what we have going on here. But yeah, this is really cool. Just you get the humans for reference, and this is a much, much larger tank than what we ever saw at the Orbital launch complex. but very similar in design. But I'm sure this one meets regulations, whereas the other one did not. It was really cool. You can actually see all of the panels down here for building those wall sections. And then I think I've showed on previous episodes, they have all of the I'm probably gonna have to grab a different image. All of the dome sections down here for those tanks as well, and then more wall sections right here. So really cool the way they just lay out all this stuff and you know assemble it extremely fast. I mean, I say extremely fast. It does feel slow, but for the scale of this project, I think all of this stuff is happening really fast. It's a pretty cool process to get to see. Another cool thing that I did notice, which some of y'all may find interesting, this is a how do you describe this? This is a submersible barge, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
semi-submersible ship that's generally used for transporting other ships and I think oil rigs, anything seafaring.
The funny thing about this ship, which I was thinking about, like, if they wanted to, instead of sinking Booster 11 or whatever they did with it, it would have been interesting to just leave it floating and then bring one of these out to recover it. I wonder if something like that was ever considered, or if not, why? This is like a perfect fit for putting the booster on this barge.
It probably makes the booster look small.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's like any like challenges that would prevent them from doing something like that? Like, I guess once you get it back, you're probably never going to want to put it vertical again, assuming that it has some sort of structural damage from falling over. But I feel like if you really wanted to, you could at least bring it back and be able to analyze the outcome of that landing.
I'm guessing there may be challenges with because it's probably not going to float perfectly sideways, the booster that is in the water, given the differential in the center of mass. So I wonder if maybe the engine section would hang down too far, and potentially, if you safe the booster, if you're venting out all of the potential, explosive fuel, is how safe is it, to approach it in the water? So without it sinking, that is too. So there might be some complications, with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're past the days of ever potentially seeing a water recovery, since now we're expecting an actual landing attempt on Flight 5, and that assuming will be the standard from there on. So, that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it didn't happen, but still cool just to see this kind of a technology. Yeah, so I'm going to continue on.
Zach, for scale,
Ye-
those storage tanks are 180,000 cubic meters, and the large hot dog tanks at Starbase are 950 cubic meters.
950, and these are 180,000.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a massive. How can you give me a percentage difference on that? I can't do math right now.
They're, what would that be? Almost 200 times bigger.
Man, yeah, that's incredible. Each one, or is that the combined?
Each one.
Combined. Okay.
Nah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's insane. That's a lot of cryo storage. Yeah, I still have a feeling that one day, and this is why I like to come back and cover this. I still have a feeling that one day SpaceX may make some kind of deal where they can get a pipeline directly to site. Um, uh, with liquid oxygen and nitrogen, we are expecting that they will eventually have a air separation plant somewhere down in this area. I believe is where it's supposed to be. So they'll
Correct.
be able to produce their own liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen on site, but then they'll still have to have LNG delivered. But I think that would really top off the whole rapid operations aspect of this that they're going for, which would be to actually just pipe in LNG and be able to quickly top off tanks for rapid turnarounds. We'll see one
Yeah,
day.
what?
That'll be like 5-10 years down the road if it ever happens. What were you about to say, Alex?
Oh, for their Mars launches, they're definitely for their high cadences. They're going to need a service like that.
Yeah, definitely. They'll definitely for sure have something like that at KSC. Um, I want to say like there aren't any other rockets that are actually operational other than Vulcan that use LNG though, right? So those those facilities may not exist currently down there, if I had to guess.
No, and you more or less need to do it, compress it on site just for the
Right.
recondensing.
Yeah, send it as a gas and compress it on site.
Correct.
That makes sense. Cool. Yeah, so we're gonna move on. I'll go ahead and take us over to the Massey site. There's not a ton to cover over there this week, but it is always gonna get mentioned in the show. So yeah, at Massey's we actually had a static fire of ship 31 earlier in the week. Or yeah, that was on. Man, I'm getting my dates all backwards here, but we did have some really cool videos posted by SpaceX of this, and I don't know if the audio is going to come through here. I'm not sharing it. Actually, I can make it come through. Let me know if y'all are able to hear this. Did that audio come through at all?
Yes, it did.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, they also gave us the engine view again, which is intense. Yeah, this is some really awesome footage. It kind of like makes me think of the space shuttle footage and that slow-mo camera that they had for the engines. This is like really reminds me of that every time I see this.
Yeah, Chad
It's out.
is saying audio's coming through.
Cool. If you guys have subwoofers, then you're welcome.
Yeah, it's really nice with this test stand how they can actually do a flight-like ignition of the Starship, where they actually start the RVACs first. With the test stands that they used to have in the suborbital area, they actually had to start the center engines first and then the RVACs. So it wasn't exactly flight-like, but this stand allows them to do that since it's much higher off the ground, and you don't have to worry about the pressures underneath the vehicle, causing any issues.
Right. So yeah, they started these center engines first, right, so that it starts pushing the plume outwards before the RVACs ignite and kind of trap or cause like recirculation in the center, basically.
Yeah, at least that's my theory. Probably not any other reason to not do that, but yeah, it's very flight-like. It's exactly what they do when they do hot staging. So it's pretty cool to see this, especially with the extended length they gave us. Eventually, we'll get to shutdown, but yeah, it's seeing all of this stuff happen. In a matter of they take seconds and extend it to minutes, and there's so much detail going on here that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. So it's really cool that SpaceX shares this stuff with us.
Yeah, I really love the flame trench allowing the ability to have cameras like this. I mean, they had cameras before on the legs of the suborbital test stands, but I'm pretty sure like they never survived ever. They were really good for like spin primes, but anytime there was a static fire, they would end up in the wetlands. I think I know several people who've actually recovered some of those cameras as they're walking out there in the wetlands. So it's nice that these are actually able to survive. I'm really interested to see what we get with the orbital launch mount for Pad B, if they are able to do engine cams like this as well too, that they're actually able to show it after ignition. without having the plume bouncing back up and basically causing distortion and all that stuff in the video. So yeah,
Yeah, there's
fingers crossed
probably
they
a
make good
reason
cameras.
why. There's probably a reason why SpaceX never shows us, the cameras, on the legs of the launch mount during a launch. It's because there's really not much to see. As with all the water suppression system turned on, it's basically just an orange glow right after ignition happens. So, with test stands like this that manage, the flame a little bit better, they're actually able to show us some pretty cool footage. So, I'm kind of hoping we might be able to see some cool stuff like this on Pad B once they start testing boosters there.
Right. Yeah, and this is the best part about this video is that it's so long that I don't have to restart it and play through it again as we're talking about this. And I'm not even going to finish it either. So nice on that, having that long video. But after 21 did the static fire, 31 did its static fire, it actually ended up moving back to the production site. So that went back, was that Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like the start of all the shuffling that happened at the production site. So ship 31 went back, then um, booster 12 went out. So we have some nice footage of that as well too. I'm going to turn the volume down on this. This is a little video made by Jeff. So this was booster 12 rolling out with the hot stage ring. They actually, instead of installing it before transporting it to the site, they waited until they got to the launch site because they wanted to do some special lifting operations, taking the booster all the way up to the top of the tower. So that was another thing that occurred during that actual lift. And we're gonna talk about this a little bit more later because I do want to talk about some of the other features that we noticed on booster 12 after it came out here. But yeah, they actually lifted it all the way up to the top of the tower, and of course this is footage from Lab Padre, so shout out to Lab Padre. But yeah, y'all can see this is basically the highest we've ever seen a booster lifted by the chopsticks all the way up to the top of the tower. There were some other great images which I don't have ready to go right now, but basically showing this from South Padre Island. Actually, you know what? I think I may have it. We're bouncing around a lot here, but hopefully y'all don't mind that.
Yeah, I can't remember if when they were testing with the water balloons, if they ever lifted up that high or not. I don't recall them lifting that high, but yeah, this is the first time a booster has ever been that high with arms.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy seeing it. I don't know if it's that the picture is tilted already, but it almost looks like this is tilting a little bit, like the arms are bowing downwards slightly, but I think the whole image is rotated slightly.
Yeah, I think the image is rotated a little bit too. I know the arms they have bent down a little bit, but the booster should be parallel to the ground or perpendicular
Right,
to the ground. So yeah, I think this is a little tilted.
right. Yeah, this is really cool to actually be able to see it from this distance, and this makes me want to watch it from this exact same location. So, yeah, just seeing it from South Padre, it's going to have a really crazy view during that first catch attempt. So continuing on, I'm going to go back over to Massey's. Like I said, we're bouncing around a lot here, but yeah. So we also have the 14.1 test tank.
I think it's test tank 16, is I
Jesus,
believe what we're
every
calling it.
week, every week I do this. I'm like trying. I'm always hoping I get it right, but yeah, I always confuse these two. So this is the yeah. This was tested a few weeks ago, but we haven't seen a secondary test yet. We are actually. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if we'll end up seeing this sent back to the production site. They do have another. Oops! Wow, what just happened there? Okay. Oh, okay. I think I actually just closed out of that, so y'all may have to stand by for a second while I go reopen it. I don't even know how I did that. Yeah. So what I was saying while I'm grabbing this, I think we may see that additional um, level added on to. Here we go. I have a ton of windows open if you can't tell. So I think we may see this additional level added on here because this is a ship aft section, and I think it would be interesting to see a upgraded forward section for the booster. So we are, and I'm not really sold on this, but um, I think we're maybe expecting the hot stage ring to be integrated with the V2 and V3 boosters. So I think they may end up wanting to put a booster forward section in here with this shipped aft section on top of it. So then you would do your test. You're basically testing the inner stage. Um, so I feel like once this test is done, I would not be surprised if they're working on the booster forward section test tank. It may not even just be a tank. It may just be the actual forward section without a dome potentially.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't really thought about, but this test stand would certainly be well equipped to do a test like that. It would be important information for them. You wouldn't want your. We theorize that they're trying to slim a lot of mass off of the hot stage section going forward. So if you're going to be removing mass, you want to make sure that you're retaining your rigidity in that section. So I think it's pretty likely that they will at least test, that section out here. But doing a complete test of all of the articles together would probably be a good test for them to do.
Yeah. Next up, I think for Massey's, we'll probably see Booster 13 has done a cryo test, right?
Yeah, we're waiting for Booster 14 to roll out.
14, and I wouldn't be surprised if 15 follows shortly after that. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen 14 perform a cryo test yet. I would actually kind of expect that to happen before the next launch, right? Because um, just with the way they cycle things, you would have 14 in performing a cryo and then getting engines installed, where 13 needs to perform a static fire after the next launch. So I'm surprised we haven't seen 14 out here yet. Were you about to add
They've
something
been
to that, Ryan? Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, nope.
they've been reworking a little bit of the cryo piping for the tests. They changed some of the valve assemblies recently.
Actually, did not notice that. I haven't gone through a lot of the Massey stuff. Is that on, like
It's
you're talking about some
right
of
in
these
there.
valve assemblies?
Yeah, the back ones.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let me see if I can see that a little better.
So I think they're
Right
not
here.
quite ready. Yeah.
Have you seen any closer images of this? Do you have an idea of what's going on back there? Or like what this is?
I think they just made it so that you could route the liquid nitrogen to either tank
Right.
with,
That
though
makes
it
sense. So
seems,
basically intermixing.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some other close-up shots of that later. Um, yeah, I did notice those back there, and I thought I was like, are those new or not? But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And I guess
Yes,
they're also still integrating these tanks right here. It looks like they're actually working on that right now.
correct. It, these are interesting because most of the tanks are being independently filled. There's not a common fill manifold. So each of them,
Uh,
this one might be filling one of the end tanks right now.
Look, probably this one
Yeah,
or any of these three as well too. Oh, they have to fill these ones from down here, right?
right.
Okay, so probably this one.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Before we move on from Massey's, I don't know if y'all have anything else you wanted to add on to this, but I do want to go ahead and address the few donations that we had come through and make sure we didn't have any questions before I move us on to Sanchez.
All right, yeah, we've been having a busy day here. Um, even before the show, Booster 1058 became a flight supporter member. Callistia Lee gifted 5 memberships. Flip Diaz, Flipper 79 gifted 1 membership. Miss Jocks gifted a membership. Sorry, got a lot here. Um, Grizu 19840 became a member. Sorry. Like I said, got busy. Yazada gave us 10 gave support with $10 for his late fee. We had Aussie Space Girl, our very own Steph, starting a donation trade with $20. Rocket Profit jumped in with another $20. Choo choo for the Go Juice. James Wilson, another $20. Choo choo. And then we had some questions as well. Like I said, busy. The first question, where do you think the Gateway to Mars sign will go?
um, that's a good question. So I guess that really depends on what the new property line looks like here once they finish the launch site. So like we're actually expecting them to expand out in this direction. I think they're still in the process of trying to get approval to do the land swap. So once we actually see the new property line move out here, I think that uh, Gateway to Mars sign will be on that wall again. I think they're just going to keep it in storage until they actually have a place where they can install it.
All right. And Bite Size Wisdom, do you think there's a risk of the concrete ablating after many static fires in the trench at Massey's?
That is a good question. I was actually thinking about looking at that earlier, but I forgot. I've kind of been trying to keep my eyes on the walls over here to see if. I mean, it's really difficult from these angles. But in the past, we did see a few cracks on the actual wall, but that may have just been things that were already present after the initial construction. I am surprised. I've said this on a few shows before. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen actual steel plating on this wall, but maybe it's not necessary. But I feel like you could definitely have some spalling damage out here on it. Like, are you guys seeing that as well?
It's hard to tell if it's construction or if it's actual spalding because these were cast in place underground. They're a very rough texture.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
we would probably see more evidence on the ramp floor. That would probably be a better way to judge it. Um, Specifically, I don't think that if they cool the exhaust enough, then it might not be hot enough to actually cause damage. If they're dumping a significant amount of water in there and then turning it to steam, they're soaking up quite a bit of that energy, which would otherwise go straight into the concrete and then cause the spalling. So it's possible they may not even need it if they're actually able to reduce the temperature of the exhaust before it actually leaves the actual bucket section with the water, the steel pipes in there that produce all the water.
Right.
All right. And Kaden Copeland with another question. Do we think the flame trench will need to be modded for the future 9-engine ships?
Um, I would like to believe that they constructed this with 9 engines in mind. Um, I think there may be some evidence of that with the way that the actual flame bucket was constructed, but I'll save that for another time. I'm actually still in process working on an episode explaining this whole flame trench, an in-depth analysis of the flame trench, especially. I think it's going to relate really well to what we were seeing at the orbital launch site. So kind of comparing the two of those flame trenches. But yeah, I think I would have to imagine that they are going to be able to do all 9 here. Um, I would imagine that you wouldn't want to have to swap out the actual flame bucket just because you're upgrading to 9 engines. So I hope, since they know that they're going to go to 9 at some point, that they've designed around that.
We know that when the pieces were showing up, they made markings on them, which you can actually see in some of the photos. I won't give it away too much information, but there's a pattern that they used, and that pattern would indicate whether or not they can currently just throw a ship on here with 9 engines or not. So if you're curious, you can go try and find some of those photos, and you can take a look at that.
Cool. Do we have any other Massey's questions?
Yeah. How does the construction of the test fire stand at Massey's versus what they're going to build at the launch site?
Oof, that's a deep one. Yeah, like I said,
Might
I
wait
have
for
a
that
whole
one.
hour-long episode explaining that difference between the two construction methods. So I think I'll save that for then. But that's a really good question, and it is a bit tough right now to actually compare the two of them, other than the actual foundation work. So I think it's good that we are going to be hopefully seeing some actual excavation work at Pad B soon. So we'll get a better idea of the actual differences in how these two are constructed.
All right. And Liam Donald wants to know, why does that Massey's test structure stand need the additional level?
Mm, I'm not sure what you mean by the additional level.
The
Maybe.
test tank area, I think, is what they're referring to.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
the 4th level that we're waiting to be added to the top of the new can crusher.
I think the
Yeah.
simple
So
answer is that this stand is probably for an assortment of tests that aren't necessarily related to just this tank. So if they put that level up on top, that gives them a little more flexibility on the different types of tests they can run in here. Maybe there's another tank that's taller, which kind of plays into what Zach was mentioning earlier. If they wanted to throw the interstage section underneath this, that increased level would allow them to do that. And maybe we'll even see another level above that constructed, but I don't see any parts for that right now.
Agreed. And James Wilson and Clistia Lee both jumped on the train saying choo choo.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your donations. As I said at the beginning of the show, really appreciate y'all because it allows us to do these longer flyovers where we're getting both low altitude and high altitude imagery. So shout out to everybody who's supporting us in that way. And yeah, we'll continue to do this every week for you guys as we have for the last 133 episodes. So yeah, thank you all for your support. I'm going to go ahead and move us over to the Sanchez site. I feel like you had another question that was still waiting, Lawrence.
Yeah, one more question from Lincoln. When is the next CSI Starbase forensic video expected to be posted? You have the best channel on YouTube.
I don't know. I have a few in the process right now, but I can't really give dates. I took this last 2 weeks off, but I will be doing a live stream on my channel later today. So there is that. I may start doing some of those in between my episodes. So we'll see how this first one goes.
All right. As we move on, we also got Bob Brink becoming a member. So thank you for your support as well.
Hey, Zach, before we leave here, I wanted to maybe note, I'm not sure if we'd seen this last week or not, but they did make the connection to the flap joint on the test tank between, on the right side there, we can see, actually down below, there might be another
Hold on.
photo
Would
that
this be
shows.
better in ground images?
I know there was an aerial photo that showed it pretty well. It might be a slightly different angle. I don't think you can actually see it from the ground images.
Okay. It seems like my ground image has disappeared anyways. So
So
let's see.
there's,
I'll find that other angle.
yeah, I think yeah, that one shows it real nice. So right down there at the bottom,
Yep.
it's actually lower. Uh, yeah, there's like a cross beam. You're even lower than that. I believe it's down
Right
here.
here.
It's yeah. So right there, that's actually where they're attaching to one of the structural members on the skirt section of the ship. And I believe they have at least one piston, maybe two, connected to this. And I think there's maybe some speculation on why they're doing that. If the flaps, currently work on the current ship, well, they've actually changed a lot of the stringer design inside of the ship. Essentially, the only thing they've kind of kept consistent here is the ring sections and the dome. They've changed a lot of the stringer supports on the inside, so this is probably a test just to verify that the welding and the substructure within the skirt of the ship is able to handle expected loads from the flaps as they're likely descending, going through the thicker parts of the atmosphere. So they're probably trying to push and pull on some of those points there to make sure that they're not going to be bending or breaking welds there inside the skirt section.
And probably the hinge alignment, so if it's unevenly torqued, it's not binding them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't catch this little addition down here.
Yeah, it looks like there's
Cool.
the upper one that you saw, Zach, as well. I didn't see that piston yesterday.
Well, it seems like there's a piston back here,
Yeah.
but I can't tell what that's connecting to because the other aft flat mount would be higher up, right? So I don't think there's an actual flap mount down here.
Yeah.
Or are they closer together? Are they closer together like that?
I thought one has a hinge point and one was the actuator.
Right. Okay. I'd have to go back and look at some of those models, but yeah, just a random actuator down there, and then obviously we do have all of the ones that are going around the upper perimeter.
Yeah, where you were pointing out, Zach, that actually is a connection point. The flaps actually use four points that they actually connect to. One of the four is a kind of a combination, both a pivot as well as where the actuator kind of comes through the skirt of the ship and actually controls the flap. So there's 4 points, and it looks like they may be testing. The lower one would be where the actuator comes out of the skirt and attaches to the flap. And then that one up above there, that's one of basically just a static joint. So they may be testing kind of both variations to make sure that they're not going to have issues.
Yeah.
All right, and Crane Man had one last question regarding the test stand. Why do they still need it after 4 flights?
Well, anytime you make any structural change to the booster or ship, you're going to have to do a structural verification test. So they don't really just make structural upgrades without testing them. So this won't be the last. We'll definitely, like I said, see a booster forward section. I imagine that we should see a multiple ship forward sections, or actually the nose cone and payload section. I think we may see another. We'll probably see a V2 and V3 ship payload section. And then for every version of the ship, whether that's tanker or the HLS variant, crew variant, we'll also see structural verification tests performed on every single one of those. So yeah, I mean, it's not a one and done kind of thing. It's pretty much a continuous process.
When it comes to the V2 here, we know they've extended the tanks, so there's going to be more mass above the actual skirt section in flight. Of course, all the forces and everything related to that are going to be different, as well as they've also changed a number of stringers and the design of the stringers in the skirt itself. And the stringers carry a lot of the actual strength through the base of the vehicle. The ring sections don't really do all that much when they're not in a pressurized volume. So the ring section itself vertically does not take a lot of the load. It's mainly the stringers. So when you change the number of stringers and you change the mass that's going to be above them, that kind of changes everything. So that's why they're building a more permanent type structure here, so they can do tests like that, as well as with all of the variants that are going to be coming up here. They want to be able to kind of rapidly have kind of a universal test stand.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess with that, I'm going to go ahead and move us over to Sanchez. If we do have more questions on this, we'll try and get to them later. But I do want to try and keep our show below a certain length today. So we will, again, like I said, if you have more questions in that list, we'll save them for a little bit later. For now, we're going to move over to Sanchez. And I think all my pictures got out of order, but that's fine. Here we go. So at the Sanchez site, a lot of things we've been keeping our eyes on over here. There's been a ton of new deliveries this week as well, too. So some fun stuff to talk about as far as that goes. But at the southern end of the site, is this the southern end?
East,
I was like east,
northeast.
northeast. Yeah, when I'm in Denver, so I use the mountains to base directions on. When I'm like talking about flat territories, it's hard to like really get directions down. So yeah, we'll just call it, I feel like this is the south end though. But yeah, so we do have these pedestals that are down here, which I mentioned on the last episode, and I've also kind of had a lot of debates going on X about this as well too. So last week these were nearby, but they weren't actually mounted. So now y'all can see that they're bolted into the I think there's embed plates on here underneath these. So they're bolted down to those embed plates. And you can also, now that this has kind of been cleaned up a little bit, definitely tell that these are semi-raised. And that's basically to keep them perfectly level. So these are basically very well leveled surfaces, whereas whatever is in between it, not necessarily. So yeah, you want your main load points, I think, to be perfectly level for whatever you're going to construct on top of this. And kind of adding on to what we've seen here, there are 4 additional pedestals that we've seen here. We actually got some good images of these when they arrived on the truck. And even from this angle, you can see that there's no bolt holes present here. So neither on the top nor the bottom. So I imagine this is probably somewhat related to this structure, but it may just be a temporary part of that structure or the assembly structure to allow them to actually, I don't know. I have a feeling they may go across in a line like this. So if you have like long beams, where's the ship static fire stand? Let's look at that one really
It's
quick.
over by Mega Bay 2 on the side facing the Rocket Garden.
Yeah, I don't know if I think I'll have to. No, I'll go to those
Just a
images
corner.
really quick. Oh, okay. That was weird. So right here. Huh. Okay. I got some weird stuff going on. These image thumbnails aren't working. All right. I may have to close out of a few things and go back to that. Yeah. Anyways, you have lateral beams for that actual test stand, the one for Massey's. So imagine if you're trying to assemble something like that, like unless they're long enough to go all the way across, which I doubt because they would have to be able to transport them like that. So I feel like they're probably multiple pieces. So if you're joining multiple lateral beams across like this, then you probably need some temporary stands to lay that across. But once you get them welded together, then you would no longer need these. So I think these are probably temporary, but just related to that assembly process. On the actual top of these, you can see the holes where they'll probably bolt the structure down to. I think I showed it last week. I'm not going to pull it up again right now. Actually, did I show it last week? Kind of what we were expecting this to look like. It's worth bringing up again right now. So this was actually posted by Chrome Kiwi. So this is a really good concept. I don't know if we should actually expect it to look anything like this. Like I said, this is rough concept, but this at least explains kind of what we're envisioning here, which is these four legs basically being slotting into on top of the plates right here, which is why they have those end plates on there to allow it to kind of fit in there nicely. And I would assume that the holes through the structure will allow them to get underneath and add bolts up through the bottom. But as you can see, this is a very simplified version of whatever anybody else was thinking. I think there's been a lot of confusion, probably because I tend to call it a mobile launch mount. That's maybe caused some confusion. So kind of rebranding it as an interchangeable launch mount. And as far as complexity goes, you can see with this one, it's a lot less complex than what a lot of people were thinking, right? So one of the big things that we don't have on this is the spin start system for the outer 20 engines. So there is no plumbing needed for any of that. And that is a big part of what makes the actual Pad A launch deck so large, because all of that mechanical work just for the Raptor startup system has to fit in there. If they did not have that system in there and it was only clamps, then it would be it wouldn't have any need to be as wide as it is. So yeah, I think removing that system simplifies things down a lot, and all you're really left with are the actual clamps. We have no idea how many there will be. There potentially could still be 20 clamps, or they may reduce the amount of load points if these are actually stronger than the original clamps on Pad A. But other than that, the only thing that you have is a water system. So these are Rainbirds. Ryan and I have kind of talked about this, and I don't think a Rainbird system would actually protect the orbital launch mount because, the flames really kind of just cut right through that, right? So I think this top deck, and Ryan was kind of thinking this as well too, would have to be similar to the water deluge system on Pad A. So basically a perforated plate that's actually shooting water out and exceeding the pressure that the engines would be acting on the actual surface. So I don't think the Rainbird system will do what is necessary. But either way, that would pretty much be the only plumbing here is water deluge and or fire suppression. I think we probably will end up with another detonation suppression system like they have on the first launch mount. So that would probably be included as well. But other than that, this is a much simpler structure. It is depicted here with a QD as well too. I certainly think that is a possibility, but I'm actually expecting that they may want to move that off of this structure, because then you don't have to worry about reconnecting hoses and all that stuff to it. So you would want it to be a fixed structure that this is pulling up next to. Yeah, and whatever they do for that, I think it'll end up being a lot more protected than what we're seeing here, or even on the especially on the first launch mount. It'll be more protected than what it is currently. So hopefully, I'm hoping that this visualization kind of helps y'all out a little bit more, because like I said, I think a lot of people were kind of struggling to understand where we were going at with this. And I don't know. I think a lot of people are like, how are you guys coming to this conclusion based on what you're seeing here? And that's basically what we're envisioning. I don't think it could be too much different than that. What do you think, Ryan? Have your thoughts changed on the whole interchangeableness of this launch mount?
I mean, for the most part, I think it's the concept is roughly correct. I mean, there's certain things I disagree with, and we've talked about this pretty at length, but until we start seeing pieces show up, the larger, more structural pieces. It's going to be pretty hard to kind of get an idea of the general shape. Once we have an idea of the general shape, then we can have a more insight into, okay, is it going to include like a water cooled top deck? Is it going to have the booster QD on it, or is that going to be separate? There's a lot of things that are kind of hinging on certain design aspects of kind of the structural piece itself. So we'll have to kind of wait for a lot of that to show up. I'm kind of anticipating there not being any raised legs. I kind of think that we're basically just going to see them make a platform here, and the legs will be just little standoffs like we see here at the actual launch site. But we'll kind of have to wait to see. I mean, if big legs show up, then they'll probably be placed on top of this. But my thinking there is, if they were going to use legs, they probably would have had the legs here first, and they would have put the legs on the stand or right on these embed plates versus having these standoffs here. So yeah, there'll be a couple of things to keep our eyes out for. Big steel pieces showing up are going to be a good sign here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I keep hoping that the next flyover is going to be the one where we actually see them, but at least we do have some progress on this. So it's really, really exciting, and we're going to have to keep our eyes out for that. I
Just
guess we'll
related
move on.
to the booster QD,
Go
you
ahead.
can actually see what we think is the next booster QD right there. It's a little bit different design than the one at pad A. It's kind of hard to tell, I guess, if it's upside down or right side up, but there are other photographs that have been taken of it that appear to show a very similar layout to the booster QD that we see on pad A. So it's very possible that's what they're building right there.
Yeah, interesting. And that would just be the actual plate and probably whatever support structure for the hoses, right?
Yeah, this appears just to be kind of like the interface plate, which would have all of the different latches on it to kind of hold stuff together, the different sealing surfaces, the different, the main propellant lines, as well as all the tiny commodity lines and electrical hookups. So that's kind of what we think they're building right there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. The area of interest changes pretty much every quarter of the year. So, we don't really have as much to talk about at Massey's anymore, but Sanchez is becoming exciting again. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in the coming weeks when all of this equipment gets delivered. So, moving on, um, there is some other interesting items that are down here. So, right here, you can see the actual cable chain for the carriage on the chopsticks. So this mounts near the bottom of the tower and on the actual the top of the carriage, um, and it travels up and down with the carriage as it moves up the tower. So it looks like they've already got all of their hydraulic and comms lines running through this already. So it basically seems like it's ready to go once they are ready to install the actual chopsticks. Beyond that, we do have some other things down here. Let me try and get another angle of that. Except pad A. And down here, we have a few new items which have been delivered to for the new set of chopsticks. And these are basically piles of the same reinforcements that they put on the chopsticks for pad A. So basically all of the upgrades that they made to improve the structure are going to be re-added onto this as well too. I feel like they may have started already.
They took off the stops right there.
Yeah, so they took off the stops right here, and I'm guessing they'll be adding on it's these pieces right here that go around that.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all the angled pieces.
Right. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
little tough to see that because there's no rust on it, but
yeah, definitely good to see they're starting to do it here instead of waiting till they're already installed.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is very similar to what happens with the ships. Anytime they decide to make a change on one, then they have to go back and make it on all of the future ones as well too, even if they're already constructed. So it's a very similar process, which is not at all surprising. Um, but like I said, like Lawrence said, it's good that they're able to get ahead on that process.
Yeah, I think we've
Uh,
even seen them working on those at 39A as well. We haven't had any real close-ups or anything, but we've seen lifts up around the chopsticks recently.
really.
Yeah,
Well, that's good news. It's always nice to hear that something is happening at 39A because it's been rather quiet ever since they demolished the launch mount. So, um, yeah, I'm always hoping that we'll start seeing more progress down there. I think maybe once Pad B is finished here and they have their first launch and they're like happy with the flame trench, um, they may potentially restart construction down there.
that's been my feeling as well.
Yeah, hopefully it shouldn't be too far off. I would say like the first launch on Pad B will probably be end of first quarter next year or sometime during the second quarter. So like probably somewhere between March and June, if I had to guess. But moving on, another thing that we've been waiting on for this Pad B tower is the actual QD arm. So most of you will remember that this was the only item that did not get sent over from the Roberts Road facility, which is interesting because this actually, I guess it's tough to tell in its current state, but I can't really notice any differences with this and the existing QD.
Yeah, I
And
was
I think
gonna
we
say,
were expecting it to be a lot different.
yeah, I'm a little confused because it looks based on the pieces, they pretty much match what is currently on Tower A, and they did have that one in Florida that seemed mostly complete. So yeah, this is a little confusing why they why they didn't bring that over, but they want to build this one on site. Um, honestly, it may come down to a decision where they just didn't have enough room and didn't want to charter another boat. Um, and so they figured, well, we need one in at 39A. We also need one here, so why don't we'll just build this one here instead of bringing the arms over, or instead of bringing it over like the arms. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be basically the same design. From even we can tell by the piece down in the bottom middle of the frame that they're going to have the kind of rectangular truss section extend toward the stack with the connection points that they have there. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be the same design, which um, kind of at least in my mind brings up the idea about the new tower kind of having additional attachment points. So it's possible we may even see them, given that the design is going to be using two of the connection points, they may actually move the QD arm up the tower later when they get to maybe larger stacks, version 3 potentially. So we'll kind of have to keep our eyes open for that now that we know that this design is going to be relatively the same. So that'd be kind of cool.
Dang, I
There,
feel like that would be super difficult to move it afterwards. Like I kind of agree with that, but I also wonder if maybe we'll even see them build another one later and switch them out entirely. Um, if moving it up on those mounting points isn't enough to reach the height that they need to get to.
but what's bizarre is the actuator mount point is on the highest level, I believe.
Right.
So the
Yeah,
lower hinge points don't make sense anymore.
they do not. This is one of those ones that I was like hoping we would actually be able to see some difference as soon as it showed up, but a little bit disappointing. And the weirdest thing about it is, which Ryan kind of mentioned a little bit, is that the part that you would expect to be different for a taller ship, I guess would come after the because this is basically the shoulder, and so the rest of the arm. Uh, is what I would expect to be different, and so this being identical, you know, to the one that's at Roberts Road, it really doesn't make sense that that one didn't get shipped here.
With the design, the kind of the rectangular truss section that kind of extends out from the arm, the main purpose of that originally was because they had the claw that kind of actuated on the bottom side of it and kind of folds up along the sides of it. Given that they did away with the claw, I thought there would be a likelihood that instead of having that part that kind of extends out toward the vehicle, that they might have had something a little bit different kind of come up at the side of the vehicle. Not sure how that would have changed with the ship QD retraction. Could have used a different design for that. But yeah, it is a little interesting. It's not the shape that I was picturing it might have been.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So with that common attachment point, they might be able to switch out the end portion instead of moving the entire arm up or down.
Wait, sorry, can you say that one more time?
The square truss, it sort of leads itself easily to remove the end portion since it's just held on by the 4 pins
Right.
rather than trying to lift or the entire
Oh.
arm assembly.
Okay, I'm having some issues here with these images, so I'm gonna have to close out of some of these and reopen them. So sorry for that, y'all. Maybe I can put something up in the meantime here that'll allow me to do this without interrupting the show. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not really sure because all of these are like black. This is like the first time that's happened to me. Okay.
All right. While you're doing that, can I ask a couple of questions here?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So something from before from Spherical Cow. Question: you talk about pipelining LNG over to Starbase, but LNG isn't pure methane. Do you mean the LNG would be subsequently separated on site into methane, liquid methane, and all the rest?
Starship does not use pure methane. They use treated LNG, I believe, but it's not pure methane. So other launch providers that are currently working on Methalox engines do use pure methane. I think in particular, relativity. I'm trying to remember who. Somebody mentioned it about a year ago. They were talking about how difficult it is to not use purified methane, and Elon. That's when Elon came out and said that they weren't doing it. We also see that on all the trucks where when they get delivered, it just says LNG on the side of it. I don't know if it would honestly have a different placard if it was just pure methane, but as far as we know, it's not. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have a couple more. What is the structure of on the ground behind the yellow crane? This is from Crane Man. I thought it were gusset plates, but it looks like a structure below the new cable chain on the picture at Massey's. I think he means Sanchez. Right. Might be back at Massey's.
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah,
Well,
I
he said
think
the yellow crane below the cable tray.
Yeah, that's
Isn't that below by the end of the boom, the chopstick testing
This?
fixture? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I believe what they used that when they did the water balloon test. They used that and they hung the balloons from that article.
Yes.
I don't remember it having the little rails kind of going off the ends to stabilize it, I guess. But previously, maybe it did. Maybe I'm misremembering on that part.
I feel like it didn't. I always thought I've been thinking these were new, just to give it additional stabilization, but I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at some older images. Cool. So moving on, I think that may just about cover everything at Sanchez. They are painting some new parking lots over here for some storage racks. I'm assuming they kind of cleared this up, I'm guessing, so that they could do this. Um, or some of that storage may have actually gotten moved into the Star Factory potentially.
All right, and I had one last question. Sharpie wanted to know, are those stands for the possible OLM the same height as an SPMT?
Um, yeah, well, it's the SPMTs are variable height, but yeah, this should allow the SPMTs to roll pretty much right up underneath that level.
You can compare them to the booster transport stands there in the back. They're a little bit further away, but roughly, about the same height, which is about what we would expect for SPMTs. So I think the answer there is yes.
Yep. I haven't heard anybody in that disagrees with the this concept, give an alternate explanation for what this might be. I would like to see one of those in the chat before the episode's over. All right, so I think we'll move on, and I don't know if there was anything else that we needed to touch on at Sanchez. We haven't seen any additional progress with 14.1. We're still assuming that there will be some sort of drop test with this, but right now, obviously, Booster 12 and Ship 30 are at the pad. So I think maybe after the wet dress rehearsal, we'll see them do this, which is an interesting place that I think we're in right now as far as the process of things. But we'll speak more about that when we get to the launch site. In the meantime, we will go ahead and move ourselves over to the Ringyard. And I did want to start at the back side of the Ringyard, if I can get a good shot of this. So most of y'all will remember the this basically, it was a turf field that they were using initially for that Starship presentation. Was the last time we actually saw it used. So it was like the employees only Starship presentation. I assume they may be just about to redo the turf or something. Y'all have any thoughts on this?
I'm not sure. They're clearly doing something with it. I have a feeling that in the future we may see presentations being done over near the factory. They may have kind of like a dedicated courtyard over there because this one was kind of shoehorned in here. So we may see something different elsewhere, for presentations or any sort of a company event going forward.
Right.
It's a lot of safety fence for landscaping.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially with this road being closed, it doesn't really make sense. So who knows? Maybe we'll see an actual structure here. So this was that image I was trying to get to earlier, showing the actual static fire test stand for the ships and that lateral member that I was talking about right here, which they may want to support from the bottom as they're installing the other pieces, other components onto it. There isn't a ton to see outside of the base this week. As y'all can see, since they finished up the concrete work in the front, it's actually kind of boring out here. Like they really don't store a ton outside currently. I think maybe we'll see an occasional ring section out here and probably like grid fins or aero covers waiting to be installed. But other than that, I think we may have to get used to the ring yard looking kind of boring like this. But one cool thing that we do have this week is some really great shots looking into the ship bay. And that allows us to see some of what they got going on here. As you can see with ship 30, which one is this?
Is that 33, I believe?
Okay, yeah, because they finished 33 and moved it over to the back corner over here, and then they're currently stacking ship 34, um, or they've started the stacking process for 34. So 34 has its nose cone section being worked on currently inside of the high bay, which I believe we can see here. Yeah, so this is the nose cone of 34. And somebody did mention something pretty interesting that I have been wondering, which is like, why are they doing this part of the stacking process in the high bay and not in the ship bay? And so, what we can kind of see in here, which is interesting, is the turntable for ship assembly. And I guess what we're kind of thinking is that with the scaffolding that's up around this, they may not be able to actually um, like the flaps would essentially collide with this structure, and so instead of having to like take it down and then reassemble it, um, they basically perform that first stack of the joining the nose cone and the payload section in the high bay. And even that is interesting to me because I'm surprised that they haven't started doing this part of the operation in the Star Factory, but I'm assuming the fact that they haven't means that the part of the building where they plan to do that stuff is still not operational.
Yeah, I'm guessing it has something to do with the flaps would, cause an issue with the platforms around them. Even it doesn't look like that specific bay has the platforms that come up like the one next to it, like the middle one, that kind of circle around it. But the flaps, as they rotate the ship to do the welding, they may actually hit the walkways in there. So that could be why they're not actually doing that process in there yet. I don't think they're going to use high bay for that long term. So that process is likely going to happen in the Star Factory, like you said, Zach.
Yeah, that does make sense. Because I was trying to think of like, when are we going to finally see them stop using high bay? And that's like the only operation currently that seems to still be necessary to do in there. Um, I mean, I think they could do it in here, but they currently use this front corner for. Um, Actually, I'm not sure what's in this front corner. Is there another turntable in the front corner? I thought there was only the one.
I do not know what's in that front corner. I thought they might have that one open so they can shuffle maybe smaller hardware between the factory and the mega bay there.
Right. Yeah, because when they do the actual stacking, they just bring the ring section in the middle here and then lift it on top of it and then lift it back over, right? Mm.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sure that maybe they're just waiting to add this next workstation until um well, they still have potentially internal construction going on in here as well too. So if you need a crane in this building to be able to lift over to certain locations, then you may need to leave that station open. But most of those internal platforms seem to be completed. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something else happen with this soon. But yeah, this is really cool though. Just being able to see all this scaffolding. It's funny because like on the backside over here, you do have the platforms, which uh, theoretically should make these not necessary. Like if you just had the ship turned around in the other direction, then you would have access to it from the back. And they use scissor lifts. You can see one of the scissor lifts right here. Um, so scissor lifts allow you to access everything in between those two levels. So it almost doesn't necessarily make sense to need scaffolding, but yeah, it's still cool to actually be able to see it uh, from this angle.
Have we talked about the fold down platforms at all? You can kind of see them in this photo here. I know they recently added those to kind of the third level up. You can see they've got those platforms that can fold down um, if they have a vehicle there, so they can get kind of closer to the vehicle if need be.
Yeah, I had to close out of my ground shots, but I will get back into those so we can. What is going on here? You guys ever like just click too many times? Like we move so fast on something and then you just click multiple times when you probably should only do it once and wait. I think that's what's happening. I'm moving too quickly.
All
So
the
yeah,
time.
These ground shots that Mauricio got show basically the bottom of from the bottom of the bay up to the top, so you can see the ship platform, the engine install platforms down here, which we've talked about in the past. But going up a little bit higher, you can see the platforms, the fold out platforms that Ryan's talking about. So these are in their extended position, and then we have some up here that are actually folded back. So this allows them to lift the ship in without worrying about it colliding with that. And then once the ship's sitting on the stand, then they can just fold these down. So that's really cool. They do have something similar in the Mega Bay, except the platforms slide out instead of folding down like this. So a little bit different, but kind of similar purpose. Was there something else from the interior view you wanted to talk about, Ryan?
I was just going to point out the that first shot you had of the aerial view, looking down into that middle station. You can actually see the cutouts for the Raptor engines really well. So you can see just one of the RVAC ones here. But if you go to the first image there, you can actually see to the first one. You can actually see they're cut in the center for. You can kind of see the three-sided triangle there for the three centers, and then the two RVAC engines. So I'm not sure if we've actually had a photo show this platform that clearly from above before. So that looks pretty cool, pretty close to kind of what we expected, actually.
Yeah. Definitely helps getting a view like this when it comes to trying to model something like this.
You can also tell here from this one actually how far away the platforms are from the vehicle, given the white ring, and then there's kind of the 6 attachment points that it kind of rests on would be where the wall or the tank wall would basically go straight up from there. So you can see the distance between kind of the vehicle and the platform there. So when those fold down platforms kind of extend out, you can kind of get an idea of how far out or how close to the vehicle they're actually able to get with
Oh,
those.
you're talking about these, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, this week we do not have a view into Mega Bay 1, because they got the door down. But they did. So 15 is fully stacked. Booster 12 is now at the launch site. And so inside of here currently there is 13, 14, and 15. And then I don't know what is down here currently. That's kind of weird.
I thought that's a new booster starting, but don't quote me.
I believe he
Did
caught the methane section actually being lowered onto the transport stand during the flyover for 15.
I thought 15 was fully stacked.
No, they were still waiting to stack the two halves.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So then this is the top half of 15 waiting to be stacked.
Yeah,
Huh. That means it may actually have been stacked already at this point then. Yeah, that's the one thing I've always worried was going to happen is that you'll see little ring sections go in, and then the next thing you know, you'll see full boosters move out, and you never saw any of the stacking process. So, yeah, luckily we get to see some of that process with the ship, but the booster is truly behind closed doors at this point.
Yeah, it seems like there's been a little bit of a backlog in the booster department just because you've had 12, 13, and 14 in there on the 3 main stands for a while now. And so now that 13, or now that booster 12 is out at the launch site, you have an extra stand that you can start to do stuff on. So they may be able to kind of kick it into gear and start getting the pieces kind of put together for that. And so I suppose that kind of begs the question about when 12 is done at the launch site doing testing, is it going to go to the rocket garden or until the flight, or are they going to maybe try and park it somewhere? Because it seems like they may be out of parking spots if 15 goes on to one of the the white stands there in Mega Bay 1.
Right.
They did move the booster caps over by the static fire stand from the scrapyard. So they might move it back to the rocket garden.
Yeah, I thought these were only for cryo testing because they could just store it with the hot stage ring on um, after it's fully stacked or post static fire, I guess. Once you actually have the hot stage ring, then this kind of becomes not necessary.
Yeah, of course they could do a shuffle. Maybe they take 13 out and go cryo it, and maybe 12 takes 13's spot. They do some kind of a shuffle. That they could always do that too.
Right. Cool. Unless you guys have any objections, I'm going to move us over to the Star Factory, which I just remembered. I also have to reopen that one. Actually, let me double check really quick and see if it's already. Nope. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get a better system here for displaying these images, but they're it's I have a whole list of things that I want to be able to do. Um, and some of these programs are good at some of those things and terrible at others. So it's kind of hard to find something that just works for everything that I need to do. I guess showing galleries of images like this is somewhat rare, I guess. Um, so not a lot of people out there with the same needs. But yeah, so moving on to the Star Factory, I'm gonna start us with a deep view of this. So yeah, you can see that they somebody pointed this out before the show. They've actually started cleaning off the roof on the taller section of the building. I feel like that's going to be like a continuous job because it gets dirty so quickly. Um, and I actually am wondering if this dirt will continue to build up once the construction is complete and that everything is mostly paved out here, or if it's just constantly going to get dirty from essentially rainfall. Um, but yeah, so they've cleaned off most of this. I'm assuming they're going to do the entire rest of the roof here soon. As somebody was saying, there was actual pressure washer visible up here, but like I wasn't able to find it.
It might have
Um,
been last week.
okay, yeah. So moving on to the side of the building where we are still seeing progress. Um, we have the extension going over to the office building, of course. And I think from some other views, right, like this one, you can see that they've started the section adjacent to it. And so this is one where uh, I, I would believe we would see a bridge crane, but I don't see any rails for a bridge crane on these yet. I do. I think I see one on this side,
Yeah,
mount for the.
I think this is far enough that the bay's pinched down that the bridge crane would stop, like on the adjacent bay did.
Wait, so you're saying you don't think it would come down this far?
I think it's probably next week we're going to start seeing the rails. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but there are none visible currently, right? Oh, wait, there is
No.
one on this side though.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually I'm happy to see that because I think a lot of people are kind of expecting this to be like an open area, but like this is all for assembly purposes. So um that is interesting that this rail comes all the way down here because then it kind of makes you wonder what this whole mezzanine level, not mezzanine level, but this walkway that they got going down here, what that's all about. And so they've done the first uh, I guess section of it because this level actually seems to be broken into two sections, right? So there's another. It should expand out like that. For some reason, they haven't put the corrugated panels on it yet, um, but they have poured concrete on this first part right here, which you can kind of see that, right?
Yep.
I think that it was here a little bit earlier in the week, and they had like just finished it right before this flyover. Um, yeah, very interesting that they didn't complete the rest of this before pouring that.
Or the upper level that looked like it
Yeah,
might be a.
yeah, they haven't done the upper level at all too, which is going to join with this floor right here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, looking at it again from that other side, which view was that? Um, so I think we'll also potentially, well, we may never actually see the walls come down, but once the roof and the actual all the glass on the outside is installed, I think they'll finally be able to remove these walls because a big purpose of this, I think, is because they have these HVAC systems. These are HVAC systems, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because they have these HVAC systems out here, they had to kind of close this in so that they can maintain um, uh, climate inside of there. So yeah, they got that blocked off for now while all of this construction is going. But yeah, they're finally expanding out over into this area, which is really awesome to see. Tons of steel out here right now, and even from that direct overhead view, we can also see the foundations for the other columns that are coming out here, which we did see last week. I think they still got to move a little bit further down into this area with those.
The up to the left of the crane mats already, the footings were poured already.
Right here.
Yeah, there's buried somewhere in the under the steel and dirt. You can see one right above your pictures, about a third from the right. There's down.
Oh, you're
Or
talking about
your
a different image?
Yeah, no, the embeds right. There's a looks right a little bit to the right. There's a white. Yeah, right below that. There's some embeds
Okay,
right there.
cool. I
So
see them right there. Awesome. Yeah, we also got some roof work going on here. I'm not sure what to think about this. I've been a little bit confused actually with this. So I think this is done in two different um, procedures, right? So this is like the under the like boundary in between the actual whatever they put on top of this is this actually also looks like hardwood floor to me. So I'm kind of confused. You have any thoughts on this, Alex?
it's some sort of solid insulation to slope the roof more or less, and because it's a cement slab that it's
Right,
sitting on.
right. So are you? We're thinking that there's not going to be um, general access to this roof level.
It doesn't look like it because there's a stairwell to the left front. It looks like a corrugated right below that, right there.
This one, yeah,
One down, the corrugated structure. Yeah, that's a stair access. And the parapet wall is probably about 8 feet tall.
yeah, which you can see right here.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have a clean view of the launch site, anyways, from up here. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily make sense. Um, these are actually looks like large vents. So I'm guessing an air handling unit will go up here then.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so yeah, you have probably uh, a return. One is a return, and then the other would be um, a discharge.
Yeah, there's a
And then
supply.
yeah, sorry. Um, isn't there one down here as well too?
I think so. Yeah, it's
Those
all the
same
way.
vents.
Yeah, by it's hidden with right below there,
These.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So a second air handling unit going on this side then. And speaking of air handling units, I think we have a better understanding of what's going on down in this area right here. So I think we thought this may be potentially part of a mission control building right here, or a mission control room. But yeah, I guess we have a different understanding of this now. This actually looks like it's a separated um, compartment of the building, essentially. And when you look at it from the side, you can actually see a very large duct that's coming down right here. So, or the current thought is that this may actually be a large mechanical room. So again, instead of having the air handling unit on the roof like you will for the other two locations, this would be basically a cooling unit for this part of the building,
Yeah,
which is interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to point out there's probably 3 or 4 penetrations to the lower level. There's those 2, and then there's one close to the
This one
yep, and then on the
right here.
yep, that outer wall.
Yeah. So I do now. I'm starting to wonder if this entire building is all for data.
It looking like that entire 3rd floor could be it for data, and that would just be where their air handlers are.
Yeah. So you'd have just a ton of computers up here. Um, yeah, that's going to be interesting. It does make sense why they've done this part of the structure without windows.
Yeah, Crane Man was saying it looks like a cold roof on top of the new office building. You might want to Google cold roof.
I will try and do that here in the side, unless somebody wants to like post a link or something for me, so I don't have to do that. Cool. If we get a link, then I'll share that. If not, then we'll move on. But yeah, glad we've kind of put that a little bit to rest. I was hoping that we would see like a mission control, but honestly, I think if there's parts of this building in here that don't have actual offices in them and they're like larger open spaces, then you could still potentially have mission control in one of these areas of the building if they're even planning on attempting to put one that close to the launch site. Cool. Do we have anything else on Star Factory that we want to touch on? If not, let's answer some questions and then move ourselves over to the launch site.
Alrighty, Crane Man sent in a $20 Patreon, I believe, donation. There's a couple of questions regarding to the vehicles. From Brian Ellenberg, could the integrated hot stage ring use transpiration cooling similar to what was intended for the ship before the switch to tiles?
Um, I'm not really sure how that would work. Do either of y'all have thoughts on that?
I mean, it's been a concern of mine. Well, there's a couple of concerns to be honest, because if the renderings are true, then the grid fins are going to be much lower. So there's a lot of questions regarding how the grid fins are, the grid fin motors are inside the propellant tank, and I guess then on top of that, if the grid fins aren't on the top of the forward dome, then it's possible they could kind of integrate the forward dome and the kind of blast surface for hot staging. Now, whether they are able to use like a transpirational cooling for that or not, I think is maybe a another question. I've kind of thought about it. I'm not entirely sold. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really sold on the whole hot staging idea with a rapidly reusable vehicle in the first place. But something kind of has to give there, and I don't think they're gonna get away without cooling the steel surface on something that is integrated. Now, depends on how integrated the hot staging section is. If it's if it's sharing the forward dome and the blast surface are the same thing, then obviously that's kind of a different ballpark than if they're technically separate surfaces, but maybe there's a little air gap that there's additional equipment in. So I think there's a lot of interesting ideas there.
I'm
Cool.
unsure
Any
how much cooling it would need. Just it's a quick impulse of energy and rarefied air. You have lots of recirculation anyway. So it's a similar to the engine bay problem.
right? One thing I did want to mention really quick, which I almost forgot. So there was some cool shots that we have from the bottom of both the parking garage and the Star Factory. So I'll like work backwards really quick because I don't think we've shown the new entrance to the Star Factory yet. So this is the actual front entrance right here. Do I have a shot that kind of, yeah, this shows it a little bit better. So this is the highway side view. So you can see all down the actual front of the building, which looks even more amazing from the ground. But yeah, so they basically cut this entrance into the side of the building right here. This is basically the hallway. So got some glass windows and doors out here. So now they have a front side entrance, which is pretty cool. And then for the parking garage, we've talked about the scaffolding that they have going on up here right now. You can kind of see behind this some framework that's going up to the top of the parking garage, and it also comes down here as well too. So you can see that it basically goes all the way up at an angle. So this is interesting. I think it may actually end up looking similar to the Star Factory as far as the exterior of it. So potentially the same types of the same types of panels that we see on the actual Star Factory would end up being used on this parking garage. And when we actually look at it from the aerial view again, which is something I was going to show earlier but forgot, I think you can. I don't know which view I need to show this. Maybe there's a Sanchez angle that shows this better. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you can see these what do you call them? I always forget the name of these every single week. Um,
The
yeah,
metal
basically
studs.
some framing. Yeah, the studs going all the way around. So I think they're basically either wanting to make this look like glossy, like a glass exterior, even though there's, I guess you could use glass and still be able to see through it. But yeah, I think it's going to end up looking a lot cooler than it does currently.
It's very similar to the framing they're using on the 3-story data center portion of the office. So perhaps they'll use those sheet cladding rather than the black ones.
Yeah, good point.
I had not expected them to, I guess, cover the parking garage. I guess um, that makes me wonder if that's going to turn into an oven, without having any airflow through it. So, are they going to have to,
Right.
you know, air condition the parking garage now?
Yeah, because you don't have any mechanical stuff on top of the building. So, yeah, I imagine it probably could get pretty hot in there. Cool. So, yeah, was trying to mention that earlier, but completely forgot about it. And yeah, with that, we can go back to those questions really quick, and then we'll hit up the launch site.
All right, so most of the questions we have now are basically going to be for the launch site.
Awesome, cool. Well, I guess I'll take us over there then. Um, I was going to show the village, but there's not really much to talk about there other than the um, fitness center that they're building. So I will skip that for today, and we will go ahead over to the launch site. So we'll start with pad A. Exciting stuff to see at both pads right now. But on this one, once again, we can still see that they have not yet started to do the excavation on the actual flame trench yet. But they, I think, are finished with the jet grouting.
No,
No, where is it?
no, they're working themselves west. It's right at that edge where the excavator. It's above that right there.
Oh, I thought this was a different. Okay, yeah, I thought this was a different drilling rig. Yeah, that makes sense. So they basically started down here and they're working their way this way. I thought they already did this side.
They did that part of that edge and then along the sheet piles last week.
Okay,
I-
so now they're working their way through the middle.
yeah, they're just
Yeah, it's funny. I think every week I hear somebody say that they've started excavating this, and then we see the flyover, and that's not the case. So maybe we probably got like another 3 weeks maybe until they start doing that. Hopefully sooner.
I'd say 2 weeks, but 3 weeks to a month is probably more apt. Yeah, all they're doing is
Yeah,
digging settling ponds.
right. Yeah, things are going to get really exciting once they actually start that. Um, in the same view, we can see the concrete pumper is moving its way up the tower. I think we can see.
It's
So this
further.
they haven't joined these two, so they're on this level currently.
Yeah, I
Actually,
thought
I
there was
can't
a
tell.
no, I think it's up. Yeah, that's a level they're filling, or they
This one.
just joined it. They just joined it, and because the above one is open,
Yeah, I was trying to see
I
if I had
think.
another angle that showed it better. Yeah, so these aren't joined, and this one is.
It looks. I can't tell from that angle.
Yeah, me neither. And I thought, did they initially have a pumper on this side too?
No, it there's a manifold, and they fill all 4 legs at the same.
Right. Yeah, so definitely have made some progress since last week, but still not reached the top of the tower yet. Um, so a bit more work to go on the inside of this, but getting close to having most of the uh, most of the work complete on the tower as far as like the actual superstructure goes. Um, Still waiting on the actual drawworks to show up, and this is an interesting one that I'm surprised we haven't seen yet. I have a feeling like if it was me, I would probably remove the one from the tower at um, Pad 39A and send it over here because, as far as we know, they haven't actually purchased any more drilling rigs. So, with that said, they may have to actually buy a completely new one, which will be a lot more expensive than what they actually paid for those drilling rigs themselves. So yeah, it'll be interesting whether or not they end up stripping that out of the other tower. I don't think they can though,
Didn't they
because
have
they
an
would have to.
issue with the one at Pad A? Like it maybe was leaking fluids for a while because they had like buckets underneath it, up under the canopy
Yeah.
structure.
Hmm.
Is it? I mean, could they may have decided that well, maybe used isn't the way to go here?
Right. Yeah. That is a good point. Yeah.
It's a great proof of concept.
Right. And I think the limitation of trying to remove the one from Path 39A is that you'd have to unreave the cable from the entire. They did that. They actually reeved it, right? I don't think we've ever seen the chopsticks move on that tower, have we? But I'm pretty sure that they fully reeved the cables through um, to the from the upper block down to the carriage on the other tower. So you'd have to undo that in order to actually um, remove the drawworks. Let's see. So we also have been keeping an eye on this little bunker down here. It's kind of seems like it's an electrical bunker. They are currently running cables out of it. And okay, thought that was going to be the perfect view for it. I think this one shows a little bit better, maybe. So you have a construction walls going up through here, which you can see the conduits. Oh, got a bit of a hot mic going on there. I think is that Lawrence?
Sorry about that.
Yep, you're good. Sorry, I was looking for this overhead view. There we go. So yeah, they've started to run the conduits over to the electrical boxes or the other electrical boxes, which are um, uh, they're really hard to see when you have all this dirt down here. I think they're right here. So basically, yeah, they have to run these from this location over to wherever they come in from the from Highway 4. I'm pretty sure it's right in this area. But making good progress on that. I think we'll also end up seeing them run this over to this building right here. They may redo all the electrical inside of this building, but you're also going to have to connect comms and all that stuff to this building unless they construct a completely new one, which I'm still thinking we'll see them actually demolish this and make a completely new structure. But we'll have to wait on that one. In the meantime, what else did we have going on at the pad B area that I haven't mentioned?
They started putting the vaults in the base of the tower. You can
Yeah,
see
maybe on
one.
the back side, I think shows it a little more clearly.
Like right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is because you have the electrical vaults that come out right here, and so they'll just run in through there. But also,
That
wait,
should
this
actually
you'll
run
have more
to...
cryo lines
Yeah,
because this is the covered conduit right here, right? With this red
right.
concrete, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
that lower
go ahead.
level is getting very confusing with that opening is kind of just filling up with trenches and pipes, oh my.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised to see this be above ground. Let me see if I can find another angle of it.
That actually will be buried. The top of it's right around grade level. It's about the
Oh,
same
so it
height.
just has it not been buried yet, or is this its
Right.
resting height? Like they
Y-
need to lower it into the ground type thing?
No, that's the right height because if you look at the electrical vault next to it, it's
Yeah, it comes up to
proud
that.
as yeah.
Okay.
So like the
So
floor of the the base of the tower will actually be raised up potentially on the inside so that there'll be a flat surface, but it's above the pile cap they originally constructed.
Right. Very
yeah, it's around
interesting.
7 or 8 feet above the pile cap. The finished grade's looking like it'll be.
I wonder if there'll even be access through this doorway or if the only entrance will be through the other side.
It looks like they're putting a vault on that next to it on the other track of concrete coming out.
This one?
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
completely.
that goes in through the other side of the building, right?
I think it's going all the way to the back where the smaller commodities are coming down the side. But
Yeah, it's hard to find the perfect angle to show this. This might be it. Right. So they had the pipes that are coming down from the tower into the base, and then you're saying some of them come out right here. So I see another
yes.
culvert right there.
Yes. So I'm assuming that doorway is much taller than it looks from these angles.
Yeah. uh, this is a perfect view though, showing that actual culvert going inside. Yeah, that
And
looks like it takes up the whole doorway though.
it does. And
And
it's about the same size as the opening on the square cube directly. The big concrete bunker they poured.
oh, gotcha. This one.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, good point. So you may end up having a valve bunker in here where you have it split between going to the tower and going to the launch mount.
That's how it's looking sort of like a much smaller fluid bunker, but without the pumps and the vaporizers, it sort of seems like it would fit.
That's really weird because you have the electrical going in here, so you have, I guess, both electrical and cryo stuff passing through this building. So, huh, that's a bit unexpected.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else that we need to touch on this area?
Did y'all touch on? It looks like they finished the chopstick rails on Tower 2.
So, putting the actual
Yeah, all the
filling those
connector plate.
gaps. Yeah. Yeah, it does look like they finished that all the way to the top.
So all the welding's done then.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely good sign to progress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they'll still have to come back and do. Oh, wait. I think they may have actually started the reinforcing on these as well too. No, because they switched out the gusset plates on the actual, or sorry, added additional gusset plates on Tower A. I think they still need to do that on this tower. I think some ground images may show us that a little bit better. Um, Speaking to that, I'm going to go ahead and grab some ground images because there's some other things that we should talk about that are related to that area of the site. In particular, um, sorry, I'm just noticing a ton of images down here that I probably could have shown earlier as well. But um, yeah, this is what I wanted to touch on first, which was Starhopper. So earlier this week, I think a lot of folks were worried that they were going to be doing something to Starhopper, but they actually ended up stripping off all of the um, protective plating that they had on the outside. So you can actually kind of see, I think, some of it that's left over up here, up the top. So it's basically returned back to its original exterior. So the funny thing about it is, I feel like the outside of this tank is way stronger than whatever they put to cover it. So
Oh yeah, it is. This
yeah,
steel
so
is
it's like
much thicker than what they put on it. I believe the only reason why they put on that other metal was to make it shiny and make it look cool, because that stuff was very thin. It was peppered from the concrete explosion during Flight 1, so it was never actually structural or protecting. It was purely cosmetic.
yeah, and
But
then it ended up being reverse of what it was supposed to be because it looked horrible. Yeah, I
but
think it
with the
looks much
wrap
better like
for
this with its original skin. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
oh, I was saying it was just sort of a wrap to make it match when it had the nose cone on it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of wraps, there was something I was going to show earlier, so thanks for saying that. It's a pretty cool Cybertruck that Mauricio caught an image of. I think this is a Mechazilla wrap. I'm assuming this is supposed to be Mechazilla. Pretty cool looking Cybertruck. Anyways, let's see if I can grab those images of Tower B so we can look at those reinforcements to see if they've started that. So many images. Like I said, with the ground shots this week, there's several hundred of them for y'all to go through if you have membership. And no, it does not look like they've started that, at least from what I can see. Wait, what? What's going on here?
Some of the areas were a little different.
Oh yeah, okay. I was like, where's the gusset plate? But yeah, now I remember that. Cool. So I'm going to move on from that since they haven't started that process, and I guess we can start talking about these awesome shots that we got of the stack in process. And so Mauricio actually caught this when they first started stacking the ship, and that's you can kind of see that right here. So again, this is only the second time that we've got aerial shots of a ship being stacked, and the first time was with Ship 20 and Booster 4 when they were using the Franken crane to lift to lift Ship 20. So this is the first time we've got to see it from with the chopsticks, and this is really cool. Yeah, you can see all of the. I think there's some angles of this that show all of these components on top of on the top of the chopsticks. But man, this view right here, looking down on it, is awesome. And
Yeah, I don't think we've
one
ever
thing,
seen an aerial view of them lifting a ship like this with, the pushers in place, and kind of reinforces a lot of our theories on how they were, controlling some of the mechanisms up there for the ship alignment. So it's really cool to have shots like this.
I was going to say
Yeah.
it validates your animations, Ryan.
Yeah, those are what, like 2 years old now?
And I think a lot of these shots that Mauricio took are definitely worthy of being used as a wallpaper. And on that note, I almost forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, once we get up to 1,000 likes, Mauricio is going to be dropping high resolution wallpapers. I'm not sure where he's going to be posting those, but yeah, I think we're about just over halfway there. I think we got 580 likes. So if y'all haven't done so already, do us a favor and hit that like button. I think there's about 1,400 of y'all in here, so we just need about a little over 400 of y'all to hit that button for us, and then Mauricio will go ahead and drop that wallpaper. So yeah, thank you all for everyone who's already done so. Appreciate the support. And yeah, these are crazy. I wish I could have been up there for this one. I'm sure Mauricio was probably really excited to be taking these images while the ship is in the air. I actually was joking with him before the show because this is like pretty much the only image that we have of the tank farm this week because he was really focused on capturing these shots of the ship being stacked, which I don't blame him for at all. But yeah, this is really cool. Another thing that is a little bit difficult to see because of the fact that they were stacking the ship is the fact that have finished up the reinforcing the chopsticks. I don't know if the ground shots are going to be able to show this or not, but I will try.
Yeah, they were they were rushing as Booster 12 was rolling out. They were madly painting the tower arms to get rid of the. They had white primer all over them after welding, and yeah, they got them painted. It looks like they got them completed or very close to being completed before the booster got to the launch site. But there might be some dirt and some dust in the paint.
Oh man, this is crazy. You can't see it at all from any of these angles. It's like the parts that they painted are the parts that are going to be visible when you're taking pictures of it. You might be able to see it from here. Oh wow. Okay, it looks like more of it's done than I thought. I thought they still had some
Yeah,
white showing on these.
I believe there's some white up by the stops that they added back, but it looks like they may have painted from the bottom up on both of the arms. So if there is anything that's left unpainted, we probably can't see it from the ground.
Right. But it is really cool that basically once they're painted, you can't really see any of that reinforcement work that they've done to it. Um, so glad we've had images over the last few weeks and months showing that process, or else if you missed all of that, you would never even know that it happened unless you were looking at it extremely closely. I guess you can from this aerial view see some of that white primer that's still left over, and these are for the actual stoppers. And I think there was another view that shows those stoppers even better. And this was a kind of something that I thought was worth mentioning because um, the purpose of them has always confused me a little bit. I mean, they are kind of close, but I mean, I feel like if they ever actually touched, you would already be crushing the booster to some degree. I mean, the arms potentially may flex outwards, um, and it wouldn't actually crush the vehicle. But I feel like if these ever got used, then you're gonna have damage to the vehicle by that
Yeah, does
point.
that other image there, just to the right of your cursor, does that show the stops? There's another. Actually, it was to the left of the image you were just on. Yeah, that one. Does that one show the stops at all?
Barely, you can't see
Ah,
it with the tower.
darn.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have
right.
been a much better photo.
I know there was one though because I was looking at it earlier. This may be a good one. Yeah, you can just barely see that little gap that they have there. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would damage the booster if those ever actually collided.
They're
But I guess
almost
it's better to have
what,
something instead of nothing.
but they're almost mainly there. It seems for when they're servicing the actuators.
Yeah, when they service the actuators or disconnect the hydraulics or anything, they typically chain the arms together, and then they maybe chain them to the tower so they can't move on their own or blow in the wind. And that seems like it's been the primary purpose for those for a while, because if those contact, then which based on where the arms are, they would over squish the booster. So I don't think the purpose of those stops are to um, position the arms appropriately for like a catch. I don't think that's what they're going to be doing.
Yeah,
But
good
yeah,
point.
when they took those off, I was like, well, they're either going to add them back or they're going to put something completely different in there, because they pretty much need something in there if they're going to disconnect the hydraulics.
Right. So basically for maintenance purposes and not for actual protection during the catching operations.
Exactly.
One other thing that we should mention this week is some changes to Booster 12 when it rolled out, which we should be able to see decently here. I can probably see it in this image, but there we go. Here's a better one. So this is the lower stabilization point that the stabilizer arm for the chopsticks interfaces with. So they added these covers onto here, and I think some people thought these were painted on, but I don't think that's the case. These appear to actually be panels that are attached onto here. So I guess I'll let Ryan explain the purpose behind these.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if these are paint or not. It's some sort of I believe it's some sort of a coating, because it appears to be the same stuff that they've got on the actual bumpers on the arms themselves now. And so I feel like it must be some sort of maybe a pliable material. I believe it's probably some kind of paint. But the purpose of this is, as the arm, and I address this in the video that I'm currently putting together regarding the catch, but for the most part, this is just to allow the bumpers to smoothly transition over the stabilization points as the booster comes in. If the arms were accurate, they might not need this, but arm movement is somewhat erratic at times, so I believe this was added as kind of a protection. So as they bring the arms in, that they allow the actual bumpers to transition over the top of this the stabilization point, because there's not a whole lot of slope to the original cover there. So if the arms impacted it, it'd probably do some damage to either the booster or the arms themselves. So this is a little bit of a smoother transition, and it essentially serves the same purpose as the pieces we can see here at the top of the frame, as they transition onto the stringers up above.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing about this is it kind of gives you an idea of what point they expect the chopsticks to actually make contact with the booster. So, I mean, I'm guessing it would potentially already make contact below this point, or unless this is just a safeguard in case the chopsticks close early. But I think the earlier the better, as long as it's able to continue sliding up the booster without having like friction. I mean, there's going to be some friction no matter what, but yeah, it kind of shows you how long of a travel the booster is going to have while in contact with the chopsticks.
Yeah, and another thing with the kind of the black covering is, we believe it's a paint just so that as the contact is made, it essentially leaves a fingerprint on the booster and the bumpers, so that you can actually see where things interacted, and that might allow SpaceX to kind of get a better idea after the fact. Where did the booster make contact with the arms? How does that relate to our telemetry? And it might allow them to refine some of the control later on, as well as just what actually happened here, because they can't put a camera everywhere. So it might be just for analysis purposes later, which kind of why I'm leaning toward it just being like a paint that can scratch off.
Right, that makes sense.
could be a friction reduction, because if it catches and they have to roll it so the pins line up, you'd want to minimize the friction that would generate.
Right. I feel like steel's a pretty smooth. The stainless steel's pretty smooth though.
With it standing proud there, it would add friction, and it might cause it to rotate to one side or the other.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Do we have anything else from the? Oh yeah, we do. But as far as the Pad B stuff or Pad A stuff goes, do we have anything else that we wanted to mention from here? I know that they are doing some work on the tank farm for the deluge system. I think this image right here may show it a little bit better. Not really.
Oh, that.
Yeah, just give a brief mention of this, which I think you can see from here. So they've done some retrofits over here. I'm honestly not sure if it's even active right now because of what they've done. So there were 6 posts coming up here. So there was 2 for each bank of tanks, which maybe this will show it better. Yeah, there we go. So you can see those coming up right here, and there was 4 additional ones over here, which are I thought there was 3 left. I'm not seeing it though. Yeah, I believe they may have completely removed the ones for these tanks right here. So, I mean, there's a possibility that with the extra ports that are on each of these, that they could just run hoses all the way across, but I don't think so. So I'm wondering if they still got some work left to do on this.
Initially, they were running the deluge with just the left tanks.
Yeah, I guess it's possible that we don't even know if these are being used, but I'm pretty sure they were because once they installed these, there was kind of a noticeable difference in the flow rate of the water coming out of the deluge plate.
And they probably needed additional gas with having the deluge running during the catch attempts.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean that for that reason, it doesn't make sense to remove these. So, like I said, I think we'll probably see some additional work in the next week or two. They'll probably re-add something over here to connect to these tanks. Um,
They
with go ahead.
and it looks like they're welding on the pipe with a Dayglow antenna or umbrella. So they might be adding some valves to that to isolate it.
Yeah, that would make sense. I was seeing if there was a directly overhead view, but yeah. Cool. So I do want to talk about the tank farm briefly. I only have that one image, like I was mentioning before, but they are doing some new work down here uh, on this pad where the LOX tanks used to be, or one nitrogen tank and 3 LOX tanks. I believe they've started cutting down through the actual pad, and this is a super thick pad. It's actually, I think, last time if I remember correctly, it's about 8 feet thick, or about almost 2.5 meters thick. And I can't tell. This looks like some rebar that used to be down in here. I can't tell if they've fully cut out all of that all the way through and then just backfilled this with something, or if they've just stripped like the top layer of it somehow.
When they were doing the same thing on the old landing pad, which was probably a third as thick, they cut the outer layer, excavated it, and then they cut it down sort of in layers.
Right, because there's like a multiple layers of rebar that you have to cut through.
Yeah, and your saws are only so large.
Yeah. So basically, the goal is to get down to the gravel or dirt level underneath so that they can start drilling CFA piles basically for foundations for some tanks that are going to go here. So it looks like we'll be seeing some horizontal tanks in this area. What their purpose will be is unknown. I wouldn't be surprised if, well, we do have those 2 tanks that are at the Sanchez site, which again, my images have gotten out of order here, so I don't. Okay, no, that will be Massey's. So these 2 large tanks right here. I personally don't expect these to go there, but it is a possibility. And even if they did go there, that spacing looks like it's made for 3 of them potentially instead of just those 2. But maybe not. The size of those tanks is a bit deceiving, and it's really hard to see how they fit in here. But I'm pretty sure the pedestals for them or the bases for them are closer together than this. I'll have to do some measurements later and see if that fits this footprint right here. But yeah, so we got additional work coming to the orbital tank farm, and it's a never-ending retrofit process that's been going on for basically the past year and a half almost. Actually, even longer than that. But yeah, we do have some rebar cages that they're forming up down here. So once they cut down to the level that they need to, they'll install those pedestals. And the fact that they're even doing this at all is kind of funny to me, because I mean, with this being such a thick pad here, you would think you could just bolt your pedestals down on top of it, because you already have basically like a floating pad here. But I think the fact that they're doing this is a sign that this pad is not as, first of all, level as they want it to be, and also not as stable as they want it to be. So I think there was some images that kind of have proven a theory that I've had for the last 2 years or so, that this pad was actually sinking. And I think it's probably bent downwards a little bit. So in order to level it off, they have to like install completely new foundations for those tanks.
Yeah, if the 2 large tanks from Sanchez move here, it's a good chance they're redoing the whole methane reclamation system.
Yeah, which is weird because you'd think they would just move these ones over, but maybe those tanks are larger than these. It's hard to. They're certainly wider than these. I bet. Yeah, I bet the length is about the same, but they're wider.
That would explain the 2 heat recondensing tanks that showed up last week.
Oh, the ones that are they at Sanchez?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those 2 are the FireX or DeadX water.
Yeah. Oh, wait. So they do have.
Yeah, they're nitrogen pressurized. There's a label on them for.
Okay, so they separated that away from the pressure building system.
Yep.
Nice. Won't get into that too much. That's a detail that I am also working on a orbital tank farm video. Been working on that for like a year now. But yeah, interesting the way they've redone this.
We're saying too much, Zach.
I know. It's okay though. Yeah, do we have anything else that we wanted to touch on? Or if not, I think we'll go ahead and start to answer some questions. And then in the show, I think we went over on our time yet again. I really am failing to keep it below 2 hours, but I'm trying. Anything else y'all wanted to mention?
I guess maybe just minor note is that they're painting the top of the mount, I think, more than they have historically. So might go along with the catch attempts, with additional heating, maybe wanting to ablate the paint.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That brings up a point for the potential for pad B's OLM surface for cooling. The plume's so large that they'd at least need some sort of, like the steel, not as strong as the steel plates, but something similar on the top surface, depending which way they're pitching the stack at launch.
Cool. Well, let's see if we have any questions related to the launch site, and then we'll also handle any remaining donations that we haven't touched on yet.
All right. Yeah, we got a lot of questions here. Is there, from Caden Copeland, is there any space at all for a camera on the OLM to be like that slow-mo shot at Massey's?
Yeah, they do have. Well, they did. I don't know if it's still there. So there's several cameras that they have down here. There's one right here, and there's one right there. They don't, in my opinion, have the greatest views because they're basically in line with the legs in order to stop them from getting demolished. But I think this one is actually angled into this gap, and then this one is angled into this gap. So yeah, they don't have a frontal view that gives them a look straight up into the bottom of the booster. But from, let's see, I don't know if the ground images are going to show it this week or not, but maybe they will. There is a camera on the actual legs themselves.
Yeah, they have 3 cameras on every other leg that look up at the bottom of the booster.
Yeah, great image right here that shows one camera right there and another one right here. And you can see that these don't always survive the launches. I think there was some conduit left over from one that was previously here and got destroyed. So yeah, this seems to be. I think the housing does just fine, but it's everything else that gets destroyed. So yeah, these are engineering cams. I think they probably give them really good views leading up to. I mean, we've seen them. We've seen the views that these get. They really only show them up to the point of I want to say like T minus like 15 is probably the last time they show these. Once the um, detonation suppression system and the deluge system turn on, they don't show that angle anymore. But I imagine they do have some decently cool views at ignition.
Yeah, I believe Flight 4 was. They showed us the activation for the detonation suppression system through one of those cameras. I think that's the latest we've ever seen that view, like before launch. So, that would have been, roughly T minus 15 seconds.
Right.
So yeah.
Before we address the other questions, just want to mention again, we are up to 800 likes, so about 200 away from our goal of 1,000. And again, Mauricio will be dropping a really awesome wallpaper once we hit 1,000. So hopefully we make it there before we answer the rest of these questions.
All right, next question from the E. Eric. How tall do you think the OLM2 will need to be if now using a flame trench and diverter is taking shape?
It's a good question. I think, and Ryan has a different opinion on this as well too. I mean, they're pretty close in both of our ideas, but so we don't know how deep the trench will go. We do have like a boundary of like lowest and highest that we think it'll be. Was it about like 16 or 10 to 16 meters deep or something like that?
10 is under 40 feet,
Okay.
up to about 45, but
Yeah. So the bottom of the launch mount for pad B or pad A, the actual engines end up being 16 and a half meters above the deck. And so with this, if this is, let's say 10 meters deep, then if you're trying to make it equivalent to what Pad A is doing as far as like your standoff height between the engines and the deflector surface, you would only need to have 6 meters above grade for this, and that would be 10 meters lower than what it is currently, which means that would actually allow for the top of the booster to be lower than what it is currently, and it gives you a little bit extra room at the top of the tower for the ship. I think the nose of the ship may still end up exceeding the top of the tower, at least on the V3. But this still is a kind of a cheat around increasing the height of the tower. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically it does increase the height of the tower, but it really doesn't at the same time, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, previously I had mentioned, on past streams that, there's a lot of different variables they can play with while trying to achieve certain constraints that they want. So in this case, they extended the base of the tower height a little bit. They used basically the same tower sections. Whatever height the mount ends up being, that kind of is, the 0 point. From there, the stack can be, roughly different, than it is on Pad A. And I guess, one other thing I'll mention, with Pad A, they're basically firing the engines at a flat surface. So that distance, may have something to do with the flat surface as well, that, if they potentially have a two-sided diverter, they may not need as far between the engines and, whatever surface, whatever design it's going to be. If it's going to be like a, pipe design like they have at Massey's, or some sort of a sloped plate, the distance may not need to be as much if they have a little bit of angle that kind of forces the exhaust gases to go in the direction that they want. Because here they basically are just allowing the pressure to build up and then naturally move out from underneath the mount. Of course, then when they added the steel plate, the water kind of gives the gases a little bit of a direction or initial velocity to move out from underneath the booster. So they may be playing with that as well with the next with Pad B. So I think we'll kind of get a clear idea of how high the mount is going to be, once they start constructing it, if there are legs. Right now, I'm leaning toward there not being any legs. I think it's pretty much going to be not at grade level, but I think it's not going to be raised significantly like Pad A is, because all of that is basically going to be below ground.
The only distance I think it'll be up is enough to generate some flow from airflow around the plumes into the trench. So maybe, I don't know, 5-10 meters above grade level, that's where the Raptors will be, exhaust will be.
Cool. Any more questions?
Yeah, Kal-El wanting to know, could they replumb the bottom of the booster to include the 20 outside engines getting fired through the BQD instead of underneath and around the way it is now?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Do you want to answer that, Ryan?
I was just going to say, I think we anticipate that happening just because of the failure points that the booster, or we'll just say the Raptor QDs, have. That they have to be heavily serviced between launches, and so that is a point that I think they likely want to remove if they can. We see significantly less work being done on the actual booster QD than the actual the Raptor QDs. So, while that system is pretty cool, like Zach has said before, I think that they're not able to keep the hot gases out of the ring, which would cause them to experience fatigue and wear. So I think we expect them to start all of the engines through the booster QD on the next launch mount. It's possible they have additional interface connections, that instead of just everything going through the booster QD, maybe there's, another panel somewhere else that also does that as well. Not entirely ruling that out, but if they go with this more mobile type stand or interchangeable mount design, then they may want to try and pass everything through the single booster QD. So, but I think we expect it to be much simpler. The actual interface connections are going to be a lot more simplified.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a chance, as Ryan was kind of saying, but like having multiple QDs, like at least two, potentially three, um, maybe one on each side of the vehicle. Um, so you have a split manifold that goes on that each of them handle 10 of the engines, or just simply doing all 33 through the booster QD. But yeah, one of those two options, either of those options, I think, are better than the current system.
The current system's vibration environment does not lead to nice seals.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Next question.
How many launches or when do you think Starship is matured and the OLM is matured that the launch mount can take before needing to be swapped out or taken off for refurbishment in regards to the new OLM design?
I would hope at least more than two, but five would probably kind of be ideal. I mean, the current time that it takes for the existing launch mount to be um, serviced in between launches is, I want to say, about like 4 to 6 weeks, pretty much. So if however many launches you're planning to do within 4 to 6 weeks is how long you would want this to last, because you know if you can do, let's say, 5 launches in 6 weeks, then you want it to last for at least 5 launches before it needs to be switched out. If you're trying to do 10 launches within that period, then you may need a third mount, so that you're cycling them out every 5 launches, in order to keep up with the cadence. Cool. Any more questions?
All right, so why don't they test the landing and see if the chops upgrades work and not risk changing from a third design? And those last two questions were both from Caden Copeland.
um I wonder if he's asking if they should do the first catch attempt before upgrading the new arms.
Yeah, I believe that's what he's referring to, is why don't they catch first, then implement the upgrades into the Pad B and 39A ones.
um I don't know. I think maybe the um retrofits that they've done are kind of make it stronger than it needs to be, and then not necessarily that it if this doesn't if they don't do it, then it's going to collapse upon landing. I think it's just for giving an extra margin of safety and not necessarily putting it within the safety margin. So yeah, I think that with a lot of these things, this is kind of just like their general procedure, is that they once they make a change, they do it everywhere, and if it needs to be further adjusted after that, then they just deal with the consequences of that. So it's the same thing as what they do on the boosters and the ships. Like right now, they've expanded the capacity of the booster landing tank, and they did that on all the boosters. And as far as we know, it hasn't been included on any boosters that have flown yet. So they've already gone and made changes to future boosters, or sorry, the other existing boosters, without even having used this one in flight yet. So same process.
All right, and moving on from W4IT, is it possible they added strain gauges on Tower 1 to see if what the flex data on Tower 1 was during the full height lift?
We know they added a bunch of sensors to at least the arms because there were a bunch of wires coming out of the bottom of one of the arms. I believe it was maybe earlier in the week or maybe last week. So they have done some testing. There appears to be sensors all over the carriage. So they likely were doing some additional testing, potentially even during the lift of the booster when they went all the way to the top of the tower, to kind of see how things would react even at that height. And if they're doing that, it's I don't necessarily know if they put any strain gauges in the tower, but we have a decent idea that they have been monitoring the movement of the tower, because they do have placards on the back of the columns, which looking toward the build site. So they may be using equipment, cameras, to essentially monitor the tower from afar, essentially.
That's kind of common when they do subway construction in cities to monitor ground movement as well. So it's very likely they're doing that.
All right. And Jeff S. Jones asking, and this he asked Zach, but this is for any of y'all. Have you looked into how much the booster can pendulum swing after the catch?
I think Ryan addresses that in his episode that he has coming out soon.
I don't address the actual swinging of the booster to any numerical value, but I mean, we know that it can swing because of the ball joints on the load points. But if it's, let's just say the center of mass is going to be so low that if it's swinging significantly, they probably have a big problem. I imagine we probably won't be able to visually tell that it is swinging from afar. If we do, then there's probably a problem.
I mean, they could have lifted the booster up to the top just to check for those types of resonance frequencies as well.
Cool.
All right. We got one last question, and then I'll go over the donations from Lay Pioneer. Pure speculation here. How do you think the crew access arm will be considering the chopsticks?
I don't know. I've thought about that before, and I would imagine that you would want a permanent structure coming off the tower, like a secondary QD arm. However, that may not be reasonable. I think it would be interesting. It would be difficult to do, but it'd be interesting to have crew access attached somewhere on the chopsticks, like almost like you have you have to go up to the top of the tower first, and then descend down stairs that connect with the arms once they're at a certain height, type thing. But I don't know how you'd make that work. I mean, it's possible that crew access won't be done on the existing towers, and they may happen on the future towers. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think retrofitting is too difficult. It's getting it up to where it needs to go is going to be the interesting part. They're
They've
putting
also
out the special
moved.
screen just for that.
They've also moved the arm connection points lower on version 2, so it's possible that they may be allowing for more room, above the arms, because I don't think they're going to have a structure like on the arms themselves that would, I think, cause more issues than solve. So there probably will be a secondary structure that will interface kind of higher up on the ship, for if it was a crewed ship.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like before launch, like the arms are detached from the vehicles and they're kind of spread out. So I imagine that would also be the case whenever they're ready to load humans. So it could theoretically be an arm similar to the ship QD arm, um, and just move out of the way when the chopsticks are passing by during stacking operations.
Yeah, if they pressurize the vehicles a little bit, they can let go of them with the arms. They don't need to be, fully fueled or anything like that. We've seen them do it before. So, yeah, it's possible they could just lower the arms, out of the way and then have essentially another QD arm that kind of swings over and interfaces with the ship wherever it needs to.
Cool. And I have a question, I guess. Ryan, what do you think we'll see as far as a wet dress rehearsal, or do you think we'll even see one? And I think the only reason that, or maybe it would potentially be an adjusted one, because the actual water deluge system is usually included in that wet dress rehearsal, but obviously they're not going to be able to use that right now, right?
I've heard some conflicting information regarding the usage of the deluge. It sounds like they may be able to use it um, if they need to. It's possible there are additional fines that come with using it, so maybe they'll only use it if it's necessarily needed. I'm not entirely sure about that. Again, I've heard conflicting information, but I think it's likely that we will see a wet dress rehearsal, just because even throughout today they've been clearing the pad of like they removed a lot of the equipment. They've removed the work stand from underneath the mount. So I think they're, at the very least, they're gearing up for a tanking test, which at this point I feel like there really hasn't been. I guess there's been a couple of changes, but I would expect either a partial tanking test or a wet dress rehearsal, and to happen, maybe early next week. So that's kind of what I expect.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just add on that we have the 3 closures starting tomorrow that are 12-hour closures, the normal 8 to 8 testing. So if trends hold the way they have been with recent launch campaigns, we should see a partial cryo and then the full WDR afterwards.
They have done a bit more work to the tank farm than it appears. The the liquid nitrogen booster pumps for the methane were removed, and some of the nitrogen system has been moved from by the fluid bunker to next to the LOX tanks. And then the additional LOX tank was also added.
Yeah, I think when they've made bigger changes, like when they completely reconfigured the plumbing around the pumps and the subcoolers, they did do, I believe, several tanking tests, and I think one of them did not quite go to plan. So it's better to do a partial tanking test, before a full wet dress rehearsal. That way things are at least gonna work to a point that can get you the data that you need.
And they've also gotten much sneakier with testing the tank farm without any ships being present.
True. Cool. Did you say that was our last question for today, Lawrence?
That's correct, but I do want to give thanks to Ninja Decimator, Ernest M, and John Tucker, all for becoming members. And then JK Video with the $10 super chat. And then we have Jeff S. Jones with a $9.99 super chat. And at the last question that just came in after all that was, you don't need to know, after Flight 5, do you think they will replace the OLM at Pad A with a flame trench?
Yes. Yeah, they will probably completely demolish the at least the launch mount at Pad A. I don't think they'll need to do the tower, but the launch mount will almost guaranteed to be demolished.
Yeah, I agree. And we did have one more gift membership from Dave Avery of 5 gifted memberships.
Awesome. Well, thank you to Dave Avery and everybody else who gifted memberships today. That is, and also that is a great way of giving us support. It's very similar to a donation, but it actually allows other people to have that membership for a month and be able to access all of the flyover images. So as long as you have that, you can access any flyover from all the way back to 2019. So make sure you all take advantage of that, to any of you who have received memberships today. And again, like I said, thanks to everybody who donated. It's really awesome for helping us continue to do these flyovers and, make them a little bit more dynamic than they have been in the past, as far as getting both low level and high altitude images as well. So if you guys appreciate that, then that's what your support is going to. And even after the show's over, you can still donate if you would like to, or become a member of the channel yourself, or a Patreon member. All of that is greatly appreciated and goes a long way in supporting the channel. With that said, I think we have reached the end of our show today. We didn't quite make it to 1,000 likes, but Mauricio did drop the link to the high res wallpaper in the chat. I think maybe we may need to post that again, or else I'm sure he'll probably post it somewhere else, potentially like on the YouTube page. His channel page. But we'll see what he does with that after the show. So yeah, make sure y'all download that if you want to get it. And with that, I am going to sign off for the day, and I will see you all on the next show. I'll also be doing a live stream on my channel later tonight. With that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Ryan.
Yep, it was a good day today. Thanks for everybody for supporting RGV. These images are always fun to look over, and they serve a good purpose in kind of documenting the early days of the Starship program. And as the parts of the site are kind of reconfigured, it's good to have kind of a historical photo album of how things changed. So I hope we get to continue doing these, and I'll be excited to see what comes here the next couple weeks with launch mount and Pad B.
Thanks, Ryan. Alex, it's a fun show. Everybody enjoy the rest of their day. And Lawrence.
Thank you, Zach, Ryan, Alex. Thank you to all our YouTube and Patreon supporters. Thank you, RGV, for being so awesome. And with that, I'll say main engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Love you, bye. Miss you, Joe.